We've had transactions where people have created title companies, created wiring instructions, created the websites for those, gotten a phone number,
And
but
just
it
completely fake.
never existed. Yeah.
What's up, guys? Just as promised, I'm here with one of the best title companies you can find in Texas, Poise Title, and I have Miss Amanda here to walk us through the do's and don'ts of new investors.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, so Amanda, getting into the do's and don'ts, especially with newer investors, what would you say is what are the top three things that you can think of that new investors really need to be aware of when they're trying to find the right title company?
You want to find a good investor-friendly title company for sure, because investors deals aren't typically 1, 2, 3. They're not the norm. So sometimes we have to get a little bit creative, and some title companies are more willing to do that than others.
Okay.
So having one that is able to work with you, give you some suggestions, not as attorneys, but give you some suggestions as far as their experience is concerned,
Right.
Is really vital.
Okay.
For you as an investor. Sometimes your deals are going to need to go fairly fast. Some of them are going to be very, very complicated. You got to have somebody that you can trust and that's willing to work for you and do the extra things that you're going to need to get the deals closed.
Awesome. So when it comes to contracts, okay, what do you suggest, and especially a newer investor, what do you suggest a newer investor does with a contract before they even bring it to you, before they get a seller to sign it? What should they How should they really put together that contract? Should they talk to anybody? Should they talk to the title company beforehand and say, look, here's a contract I'm thinking about using for a wholesale deal. Mm-hmm. Would your underwriting approve this? Do you suggest doing that?
Yes. Sometimes, Texas is a little bit different. We're a promulgated state, and our forms are different than the rest of the United States. And so sometimes people will pull things offline that could apply for California or another state that wouldn't necessarily apply here, or maybe we need additional information that's not on there. And so having your title processor or closer review those before you get those executed is really essential, because the last thing you want to do is say, not have the title policy addressed in the contract, and then you're paying all the closing costs, or the seller is, well, if you're quoting them a price of what they're going to be getting back, that's going to affect that, because now we got to add title insurance to it.
Okay, and I'm pretty sure a seller would not want a phone call saying, hey, remember I promised you this much money? Well, it's not going to be that much anymore because X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, that probably leads to my second thing, is the under promising and over delivering, setting the right expectations.
That's a great way to say that.
Yes, it's so important, because if you tell a seller, hey, I'm buying this cash, I can get this done in 3 days, but then we get title work back and there's 3 dead people, or there's a divorce, or say there's a survey needed because it hasn't conveyed in a long time, so the legal description isn't going to be accurate unless we get a new survey. All of those things will cause delays and possibly additional monies that people aren't necessarily expecting.
Yep, especially with people that have died, you got affidavit heirships.
Yes.
That costs money to get those together.
Absolutely.
So setting expectations with sellers, especially not just on the financial side, like, hey, here's closing costs explained or what it could be, but also we may run into additional things like affidavit heirship. They're going through a divorce,
right?
Things like that. So what you don't want new investors to do from that aspect is, hey, I can close on this in 3 days, sign this contract, you guys get it, and, well, we need to get payoffs for all these liens.
Right.
You can only work as fast as the city does getting those.
Correct.
So talking about timelines, again, with newer investors, I'm sure you don't want a phone call every day from the investor once they get some under contract saying, hey, we ready to close yet? We ready to close? I really need the money.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason why finding a good title company is essential, because you need to know that even when you're not calling them, that they're working on your file. Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes into play when we have newer investors, because they aren't familiar with the process and they aren't familiar with who they're working with. And so it's a trust issue. And it's also a CYA for them, because they're wanting to make sure that they're on top of it. And we appreciate that. I definitely appreciate somebody asking a question or wanting to help with something versus dropping off a contract and showing up 3 weeks later at the closing table,
right,
then with issues or whatnot. We want proactive people, but there's a difference between being proactive and being a bother. If I'm on the phone with you, I'm not able to work on my file.
Gotcha.
Right.
So you want to be involved in your deal, but there is such thing as too much involvement in calling every single day.
Absolutely.
So setting realistic timelines, again, going back, working with new investors, would you say on a good deal, one that doesn't one that doesn't have a lot of, I want to say issues, but doesn't have a lot of dots you have to connect, like affidavit airships, liens, payoffs, stuff like that. And a perfectly smooth deal, or what you would say is a smooth deal, timeline-wise, realistically, probably 3 weeks, 30 days to be safe.
You know what? Again, that depends on your title
depends
company.
on the title company.
Yeah, if we have something that's clean, it's a cash deal, we can close it in 2 to 3 days. Okay.
Wow.
But but that's again, without us practicing law as an investor, those 3 days can very quickly turn into 3 weeks when we're having to search errors, and when we're having to find people to sign different documents or
Gotcha.
fix things.
So it's probably a good idea for investors to have a deeper conversation with their sellers before getting into a contract, asking questions like, is there anybody else on title with this property?
Right.
How long have you owned it? Are you invested in title?
Right.
Are we going to see anything when title is pulled? Because what I found is when you ask those questions to sellers, it makes them think, oh, well, you know what? My grandmother did give me this property, but she did what's called a quit claim deed. And is that okay? Are there any? Is that a deed that I can use? So I think it's important for investors to go deeper into the conversation to address possible issues like what you're saying with the affidavit airships. Maybe the title's not clean. So talking about deeds in Texas, moving on to deeds in Texas, what's a deed? Because I know there's all types in Texas. What's a deed that you advise new investors to stay away from? Again, we're not attorneys, not giving legal advice, but from your experience in the title company world, what's a deed that if you see, when y'all go to pull a title, you're like, oh man, this is probably going to cause some issues?
A quit claim deed is always going to be a red flag. In the state of Texas, we don't warranty them because they're not warranted. It's a quit claim deed. So when you come to title, we don't recognize those as real deeds unless it's between a family member. There are special circumstances as far as divorces. That's the main one, that those are recognized right away.
Okay.
But for an individual, me deeding to you, you need to get a warranty deed, because you need to have a warranty from me that I was the person that was able to sell it to you. I was the person that was able to sign that deed, and that the title is free and clear. And so for any deficiencies, you can come back to me. Right.
Gotcha.
If you don't have a warranty on that, then you can't. If I'm signing a quit claim deed to you, I'm basically saying, if I have any interest in this property, I'm giving it to you. I don't really know if I do.
If you have interest.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't guarantee that I do. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm deeding it over to you. If something comes back, you can't come back on me because I already told you. I don't really know if I own it. I don't know if there's anything on it. I don't. So that's
and if they didn't go through a title company, there's no insurance.
There's no insurance.
And I have a lot of newer investors that will send me questions. They get kind of repetitive, but this one I get a lot is, do I have to use a title company to buy a property?
Yeah, you don't have to use a title company. But I don't want to say you're dumb if you don't. But if you look at the world today and what we're going through between wire phishing, all the fraud, not plagiarizing. What am I looking for? When you sign something that's not
like forgeries.
Yeah,
yep.
Forgeries, all of those things. The people who do this are actually really sophisticated. The criminals that tend to delve into the real estate market typically have done a lot of research to get to that point and to be able to do fraud. We've had transactions where people have created title companies, created wiring instructions, created the websites for those, gotten a phone number,
and
but it never existed. Yeah. So think about what they had to do to get to that point. Think about all the things that they had to do, all the I's they had to dot and T's cross to get to that point, to be able to show that, to make it look real,
convincing.
Yeah. And it's a big deal, and it happens in our industry very, very rapid right now. There's also a lot of erroneous deeds that are filed at the county that will cloud your title. We have memorandums of purchase, which luckily the state of Texas has passed some new legislature, which will help with that.
With memorandums.
Oh,
wow. Okay.
Because what would happen was, we have to think as an investor, you're typically going to people who are not the average seller. They're usually in a hard position, and they need to get money.
There's some
pretty
pain
rapidly.
points that they need to get solved pretty quickly.
Yes, exactly. And so what happens is somebody goes and files this memorandum of purchase. We find it at title. We call them. and they say, well, we had a contract on it. I'll take $3,000 to get it released.
So what I tell my investors is, you have memorandums that can be good for good and evil. Using it to hold a property hostage, it's not the way to go. Because on the other side of that with memorandums, I've been in situations where I've had a seller agree to sell me a property. We sign it, it comes to title. And it's happened right here at Boys Title. We have deals that come through that have been like this. And then come time to close, and they say, well, somebody offered me $5,000 more, so I'm going with them.
Right.
So in situations like that, you can have, again, I'm not an attorney, not giving legal advice, but I have used memorandums to protect my investment, but I'm closing on the property.
Right.
So it can be used for good and evil.
Right.
The evil side of it being, just like what you said, you use it to hold a property ransom. Yeah. There was a situation in Fort Worth I was involved in, and I don't know if I can say the name of her LLC. Well, if I can't, oh well, we'll let it out.
Just say ABC LLC.
Okay, perfect. So it was called ABC in the middle. So what this person was doing was getting a property under contract with whatever the seller was asking for, filing the memo, putting a contact number on there, and then disappearing, and waiting for the phone call when the seller went to somebody else because the person disappeared. They would call this person ABC in the middle LLC. And that was literally, obviously the ABC part is edited out, but in the middle was the last part of it, and would hold the property ransom with the memo and say, give me $5,000 and I'll release the memo. So it's interesting that you say that Texas is now passing some laws with those memorandums, and I think that's really going to help with the side of the memos where people try to hold a property hostage.
Right. I have investors that file them and they release them at closing because it goes to closing. Because at the end of the day, a contract means something. Words mean things. And if you sign a contract, it is binding. And that person is entitled to that. And so you're right. It is a good and an evil. You obviously want to protect the fact that you've done the due diligence of going out there, finding this person, all of those things. But you're right. Holding them hostage is just awful because you have people that are sitting at the table that need to get something paid, that need to take care of something, and they're just like, you know what? I got to have this money. I'll pay the $3,000. So you have somebody who's getting money who has no reason to get the money, and it's just fraud. It's just fraud, and it's very, very unfortunate.
That's terrible because you just picture the seller sitting there at the closing table waiting, and nobody shows up.
Right.
So that's terrible. Well, I got to tell you, I have been really impressed with all the information. I actually learned two things today. We were talking about the new laws with the memos, and then you were talking about Texas just passed. We're talking about quitclaim deeds and how that doesn't really convey ownership or title, but if the quitclaim deed is in place for 5 years, 5 years or more, then Texas will recognize it.
Then we'll recognize it, yeah.
So I just learned two new things today. So that's awesome.
Good. Awesome.
And I love working with Boys Title. I've never had a complaint. I know Miss Jennifer, going back to what we were talking about earlier, being patient and not calling all the time.
Yeah, we call you
I'm
work
guilty.
Husband. So.
A work husband?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I know over the years working with her, especially in the beginning, I would call her twice, two or three times a week. Hey, we're good. And whenever I would get the pause and then my name, I knew it was enough. So normally I would call her and she would answer, hey, Brandon. But when I was too much, I would get the pause. The phone would pick up and I hear, yes, Brandon. Then I was like, okay, that's enough. Don't call anymore, Jennifer. Yeah, Brandon, I will let you know. Okay, sorry about that. So it's funny you say that having the patience. So
and the trust. So that's the trust that you've established with her, right? So when she says, stop calling me, then you probably need to give her a break and let her do her thing.
Yeah, that's enough.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. Going back to the high points, having the right contract. So new investors need to get with the title company and say, hey, look, here's a contract I'm wanting to use for wholesale deals.
Right.
Or whatever kind of deal it could be, sub 2, whatever it is. Here's a contract I want to use. Can you please review it?
Yes.
And you guys, hey, we like this part, but you need to put in X, Y, and Z and take this part out. Being patient and setting expectations. So not calling Jennifer every 5 minutes and, hey, we're done with the deal. And setting expectations with sellers, especially with closing costs. And don't make promises that you can't keep. So just like what you said, under promise and over deliver.
Correct.
So, man, I can't tell you. I've been happy using Boys Title.
Well, we appreciate you, Brandon.
Keep using you guys, even though, like I said, I know I get on people's nerves sometimes, but I really appreciate you taking the time and sit down and talk with me because, again, I learned 2 new things, and I know everyone's going to watch this, everybody that I help get involved in real estate investing, this is going to save them a ton of time. More importantly, save them from getting in trouble.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of new investors unknowingly put themselves in situations they don't need to be in.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think you giving all this information is really, really going to help people out way more than I think you realize. I'm getting to hear it directly from a title company. Well, not just a title company, the title company.
Yeah.
Always talk about this is the one to use. So again, thank you 100 times over for doing this. I know everybody watching it's going to be very thankful, and hopefully they took notes. If not, they can rewatch it. But again, thank you so much for sitting down with me and taking the time. And I'll make sure I get some gift cards in for Jennifer because I know
Absolutely.
she's probably had enough of it. Thank you so much,
thank you,
Amanda.
Brandon. Thank you for the trust.
Again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure having Miss Amanda from Poise Title. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments below. If you have any other ideas about videos you'd like me to make a video about, maybe working with contractors, how to work with contractors, especially your big ticket items like plumbing, electrical, and HVAC, put it in the comments below. Again, appreciate you tuning in. We'll see y'all next time. Tune in for more videos.